Evening, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I assume Adam gave give you a heads up. I'd be a few minutes late. Tuesday thing threw me off, but
I think Woody just made a motion to adjourn.
yeah, he's got a quick trigger. But sorry, Woody.
I thought that was George. I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Oh, that's right.
Simple mistake. Well, I hope everyone had a nice long weekend. Father's Day combination Juneteenth thing, so that was convenient. Let's see. So it's 5:35. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Any outside comments?
No comments.
Got it. Beautiful. Let me just pull up my agenda. So the approval of minutes, June 5th, 2023. So Woody, if now's your chance to make a positive motion.
I do indeed make a positive motion that we accept the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
George, beautiful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All in
Aye.
favor? Did I hear unanimous? Good. Moving on to item number 4, architects update. So I guess I'll turn that over to you, Justin, if you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Justin Hopkins, Tecton Architects. With me tonight is also Antonia Ciavarella. She's been part of previous project meetings because we're going to talk about some of the identity stuff and visioning, bringing it back as part of the design development presentation. Antonia will be having a part in this presentation. So if it's okay, I'd like to share my screen. Just check if I'm mute. Hopefully I'm not muted. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, so we have about a 15-minute presentation, 15 to 20 minutes. We'd like to go over just kind of project recap, just to kind of get back to some of our touchstones or station points from the beginning of the project, get into some site development, interior development, exterior development, and then we wanted to share some current thinking on the exterior canopy and how we think architecturally this we may be able to thread the needle between harkening back to some precedents within the town of Madison, as well as kind of knit together a modern building with that. So just as a reminder of where we are for the design schedule, we're at the conclusion of design development. We have our OSCGNR design development review meeting scheduled for next Thursday. We still have the construction documentation phase ahead of us. So some of the details can be further refined in this next phase. So everything's tracking for an end of the summer document completion and going through the approval process with your local officials, fire marshal, building official, our third-party reviews, our cost estimation, so that we can anticipate going back through this process and getting in front of OSCGNR for our pre-bid conformance review in the beginning of November. We will have a interstitial early procurement phase that I think Adam and Nick have spoken about at past building committee meetings. So that will be a half step before completion of the entire documents. So just want to remind, we've had this as a slide since the very beginning, just kind of reminding everyone about some of the critical aspects of the project, making sure that we're responsible, functional. We have a forward-thinking and diverse design that's reflective of the community, providing community use within the building, as well as making sure that our site design is both functional educationally and technically. So this should be a pretty familiar slide from some of our previous presentations. We also know that we have this three-legged stool between evidence-based design, sustainability and resiliency initiatives, and well-building standards. When put together, provides whole child wellness within the building. So in all of these discussions, sometimes when we get into the weeds, we kind of forget about the global the global concepts. It's always a great opportunity to circle back on those at thresholds of the design. So since it's been almost a year that we've been meeting with you, we've had working group meetings that went from visioning to room by room analysis. We've had community touch points between surveys, independent meetings, and virtual and in-person events. We've also had these building committee meetings, as well as other focused meetings with Eversource, commissioning agent, planning and zoning. Incidentally, we did have our first planning and zoning hearing last week. It went very well because we are still waiting for inland wetlands approval. We will be continued to July, but we gave a fairly detailed presentation. And at the end, there were limited comments or limited questions and no public or community comments or questions relative to the application.
So as Justin mentioned, oh yeah, I'll just jump right in. Thank you, Justin. As Justin mentioned, we had those workshops with the community, a visioning concept and refining the design were the themes of each of those, a mixture of in-person and virtual events. We also hosted 2 community surveys. The first survey was more big picture visionary thinking to gauge priorities within the community. The second survey was more focused on the plan metrics, the site design, to gather community feedback as the design was developing through schematics. And most adorably, we put together some student activity workbooks that the district helped us share with Jeffrey Ryerson and Brown students. And we gathered a whole bunch of those back. And all of these comments together have informed the next phase of the design that you'll see. Next slide. So we wanted to highlight some of the representative comments from both of the surveys. This is from that big picture visioning survey number 1. Some of the key highlights were safety and security, sustainability, 21st century learning, making sure that we're future focused, bringing in the outdoors, inclusive, equitable, reflecting of the town, incorporating important things like natural daylight, but also fiscal responsibility. So really connecting all those really important pieces, the student learning piece, the student experience piece, and the overall responsibility to be safe on budget and on time. From community survey number 2, this is where we got a little bit more into the plan metrics. We wanted to highlight just a few representative comments. We are focused heavily on making sure that every educational space has natural daylight through windows, clear story skylights. You'll see more of that as this presentation progresses. We also heard that there is this real love of the outdoor classrooms, the connection to nature. So we're physically providing those spaces on the site, but we're also bringing in natural colors, natural patterns to really emphasize biophilic design within the building itself. And then ways for students to really express their creativity through breakout spaces, through movement areas. And so some of these comments, in addition to ones that aren't shared here, we're still leaning into and making some adjustments in the plan to make sure that we're responding to these great community ideas. Next. And this is how we're planning to begin to implement that. We've talked about biophilic design, about leaning into history and community context and weaving together a narrative that ultimately brings a building design and interior design that's evocative of the beautiful sense of place in Madison, and really honoring that context. One community comment that we wanted to highlight here is to see a space that really embraces everything that makes Madison awesome: the sea, the sun, this feeling of safety and quiet. And so we've collaged all of these images together for you. Where that's taking us is some neighborhood themes that are going to not only enhance wayfinding and placemaking in the building, but will also really give the students a place of identity within their individual communities and the larger shared spaces as well. So the themes that we've developed are the dunes, the greenway, the shore, and the water. And these are some on the bottom images of Madison, and on the top some precedent images that we were architecturally inspired by and continuing to work through. And we'll share more on how these 4 areas are reflected in the plan in a minute.
Great, thanks, Antonia. Site plan has more or less remained as everybody understands it. This is the big challenge of accommodating the parent pickup and drop off and bus pickup and drop off and parking spaces was more or less resolved. So there has been limited changes to the overall site plan through the ACA process. Some comments about plantings and keeping some of the existing trees that are on Mungertown Road. But just as a reminder, we have our parent pickup and drop off area to the south of the building, our bus pickup and drop off to the north of the building. We have provided the bus staging areas in a fleet parking or regatta style parking layout, so that the intention is to get all of the buses all of the parent car vehicles off the road. So for the parent pickup and drop off, we have this long queue line that can accommodate a number of car queues. We can accommodate all of even though the buses arrive intermittently based on their other runs within the community, we have the capacity to have all of the buses waiting to then queue up along the drop-off area. The benefit, as we mentioned in previous meetings, the benefit of this is, of course, to on those nights or weekend events, we can use this space to double as overflow parking and grab 45 overflow spaces, which is a huge boost to making sure that we can accommodate parking on those, school science fair nights, book fair, STEAM nights, that type of stuff. We also have our visiting parking located near the main entrance, staff parking to the west and the east of it. Our playscapes have remained in their locations, as well as our pollinator pathway, which will be part of an ad alternate, as well as this third playscape here. Our collection of outdoor learning areas, our loading and utility area to the north, discreetly tucked towards the back of the building. Opportunities for school gardens that are abound. So a couple of things that we just wanted to highlight from a sustainability perspective, because we know that this keeps coming up as we've been pursuing our geothermal well field. We have that located still at the area to the northeast of the site. We have accommodated all of the major mechanical equipment inside of the building envelope to free up the roof for photovoltaic array. We positioned the building for optimal solar orientation. We have another slide a little bit later about the ways that we're bringing in natural daylight to the building interior. We're utilizing native plantings, providing rain gardens and bioswales as part of the stormwater management system, as well as our transferred, our land trust transfer to keep some of the natural habitat towards the east of the building, east of the site within the wetlands. So some of the things for our interior building development, this is just the thumbnail of main level, lower level. I will say that the overall floor plan and position of spaces within the building in relationship to each other have more or less remained the same through this entire process. So a couple of things, we have our pre-K and K wing, as we know, to the west portion of the building, our exterior learning area in between the pre-K and K learning community and the media center. Some of our special education locations in the dark orange. Those are also located closer to the grade level learning communities where we have grades 1 and 2 at the main level. Our STEAM room, visual arts room, music room, and media center at the heart or the core of the building. And you see the areas in white are double height spaces of the cafeteria and the gymnasium. Our administrative spaces are positioned to the main entrance in green. So a couple of things just to focus on, which we've reviewed in the past, but it bears repeating. So the areas in orange are areas that we're allowing natural light into the classroom spaces proper, as well as utilizing this courtyard to get some natural light deeper into the spaces. Where we have some internal spaces, we're trying to leverage access to the corridors at the end of the corridors where we have breakout spaces, making sure that those are fully glazed so that we maintain that visibility to the natural resources outside as well as natural light. Our core spaces, making sure that we have high visibility in between the spaces from both our stage that's in the middle of the building to the cafeteria to the left, the gymnasium to the right. The one thing that we do want to also reiterate is we have areas to separate the public components of the building, so gym, caf, media center, administrative spaces from our core classrooms and curriculum spaces. So in each learning community, we have a way to separate the building through a set of double doors that will be on hold opens. If desired, that these doors can be held open to allow an open corridor. In the event of a lockdown or a fire alarm, those doors close, thus securing our learning community. So we have that for the pre-K and K areas, as well as all the other learning communities. So for our lower level, we have our cafeteria, our double-sided stage that faces both the cafeteria and the gymnasium. We have our learning stair, or kind of our communicating stair that doubles as our learning or opportunity for collaboration, additional seating, informal learning to the left or the western portion of the cafeteria. Our grades 3, 4, and 5 wings at this in the light blue. So similar concepts where we have our natural daylight at our classrooms. We have our series of skylights that we discussed during the value management process. We also have a clear story above the cafeteria that will allow natural light. So the areas that we have kind of landlocked, the major program components, we're providing overhead natural light, as well as trying to maintain that visibility at the end of our corridors. We do have access out of the building at the end of each one of these corridors. We're not labeling that as an entrance because it's more of an exit. We want to make sure that we focus our entries into the building at the locations that we expect them to be. So here's a quick section perspective. So if you cut the building in half and start to look at it in section, you can start to see how the building is put together as a whole. And so, way off in the distance here towards the western portion of the site, we have our pre-kindergarten and kindergarten wings, our exterior courtyard, main entry along our main street. And then you start to see how these spaces vertically integrate from the upper level or the main level to the lower level through our communicating stair or learning stair into the cafeteria. Our double-sided stage, as well as our gymnasium, We have some of our core technical spaces, toilets, mechanical, custodial, in the center of this area, and then our grade levels all the way to the east. So if we're looking at it from the other direction, really kind of looking at what that kind of core space or the core public spaces are, we have our media center here to the left, our main street that overlooks and looks down into the cafeteria. And we're achieving that transition through our learning stair, our stage, our double-sided stage, and then our gymnasium all the way to the right. So
All right,
Antonio, and some of our identity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our motivation, thinking back to those slides, is not only celebrating history and local context, but bringing elements of nature into the mix as well. And we all know that Madison has those qualities in abundance. So moving into the next slide, we initially started thinking about the water and how the water itself is so similar to the section of our building. We have the early childhood as that one-story space, and the building starts to deepen and deepen the further that it gets down the site. And so we thought about this stroll from the dunes into the water, how the shallows lead into the deeper ocean waters as a good analogy for bringing elements of Madison and the ocean in general into this project. Next. And this is where we start to blend those four elements that really connect the local Madison community to nature and place within this specific building. So we've thought about pre-K and K as the dunes, bringing in light sand colors, light greens, really playful and pastel, bringing in lots of neutrals, because we really at that age want some play, but also elements of focus, right? So they can stay engaged in their learning. We move next into the shore for the specials areas, those larger core spaces, the cafeteria, things of that nature, as we start to progress down into more of that water's edge. We have the greenway taking on that upper portion where you have your a lower elementary, your grade 1, your grade 2, and some of those other resource rooms, things of that nature. So bringing in a little, we're still at that water's edge, but here's our opportunity to darken and deepen the colors, bring in some grasses, some of the elements of the shoreline. And then the water itself, as we get into that lower level, is for those upper grades. Perfect, Justin, thank you. Classroom neighborhood specifically, we leaned into an example in pre-K and in 4th grade. And what we're searching for here is opportunities to really express not only student creativity, so these are areas for students to display their work in progress work, for teachers to really activate their neighborhood space, but also for students to have that sense of identity and wayfinding within the building through the color palette and through these elements of nature that we will bring in through not only materiality, but possibly some identity-inspired graphic wall protection. So these areas, we would find key moments for personalization using these colors and graphics, but it would be balanced with opportunities for tackable display so that this space is really a celebration of student work as well. Within the classrooms themselves, there's that similar balance. We have the teaching wall, which has some tackable, writable surface around it. But within the classroom, there are other spaces where the students can really engage in more vertical learning, collaboration, and playing with some accents within the classroom. But overall, we really want that element of focus within the spaces, so there will be a lot of neutral as well.
The one thing that I'll also mention, Antonio, you'll see a different classroom arrangement in each one of these 4 classrooms. That's just a description of, as we're building in some of the furniture concepts, we know that we're going to be selecting flexible furniture so that we can do kind of a bench classroom setup, a peer setup where 2 students are together, a small group, and then kind of individual, kind of traditional classroom setup. So the overall design of the classrooms can support each one of these types of seating arrangements. So just wanted to go through a couple of interior images, looking at from the main entry hall down Main Street to the steam room, looking at some of our color palettes for this area. We do have a display case that is part of the STEAM classroom. Media center is to the left. So a couple of things, would be interested to hear some feedback on some of the colors. The colors are the easiest thing to change. So as we were looking at more of a natural or a grass theme, you know, we thought, what if we introduced a kind of a cooler blue color here? Looking down to the cafeteria from the top landing of Main Street, looking down to the caf and to the stage beyond. And this image actually has both folding partitions open, so you see the gymnasium beyond. But you see the clear story that is at the upper level of the roof at this location. This is looking back up our learning stair up to the media center beyond and our Main Street in between the two spaces. This is in the media center looking back into the exterior courtyard. This is looking from the media center out past Main Street into the cafeteria volume. So you'll see how this, our clear story basically covers the media center portion out into the cafeteria towards the stage.
Just before I move on to interject for a second. So for the purposes of tying back to some of the VE items, for example, there was, linoleum floor versus VCT floor is an item that's on the alternate list. But my understanding is basically the overall style and aesthetic and colors you're referring here are basically available in either. Those are just a materiality change. Is that correct? Just as the group is seeing this?
Yes.
Perfect.
So yes, and we'll as we get into the next phase of the development, looking at opportunities to provide maybe some accent flooring. We did have a note on the kind of entrance. It may be the opportunity to change a color in the floor, but for the purposes of kind of looking at this from an interior spatial perspective and what some of the opportunities are, yes, Adam. So cafeteria with our telescoping bleachers to the right, our stage to the left. Just want to briefly go through some of the exterior development. So we included this just to provide kind of where we've been. So obviously we had these renderings as part of a previous building committee meeting. There have been some comments about the aesthetic. We wanted to show this to show the point of departure from when we had this to when we first met with ACA, to when we then next met with ACA, and then what our current thinking is. So this is the former canopy. We had some legitimate comments regarding, constructability for this, the way that this roof ties back into the rest of the roof. Some evocative comments of which I think we're as we get a little bit further into the canopy, we'll try and demonstrate how we're trying to hit the mark with some of the architectural language. So we had changed the canopy to a flat canopy in between ACA meeting 1 and ACA meeting 2. We had also introduced some color into our window assemblies. So that would be accommodated via aluminum panels and cementitious boards in lieu of a transom glass panel. Some of the comments that we got back from ACA was, geez, you really need to provide some more hierarchy here. And one of the conditions of their recommendation of the P&Z was to bring back some sort of vertical element at the canopy, specifically the sloped canopy. So this was south elevation, north elevation, or the kind of the back of the building, which is mostly brick. We have our service entrance down here with our emergency generator. One of the previous building committee comments was making sure that we get that glazing in the corridor that's on the opposite side of Art. That's something that we're updating. Our east elevation, providing our window pop-outs where we had previously had a series of vertical fins at that area. We've increased the depth of those surfaces so they are punched out a little bit. We think that this is an opportunity to bring some color into the building. The west elevation, so this is the kindergarten and pre-kindergarten wing, replicating that language, also introducing some exterior canopies. I think we've heard it both at the building committee, and we also heard it at ACA about, there's going to be a need for shade out at these young kids' playscapes until we get maturity in our plantings that we have out there. This was the axonometric that we had shown at ACA, and you can see the canopy that was flattened, and I think Sharon's comments that were read into the record at our last meeting are still applicable to this particular scheme. Some of her previous comments. So what I'd like to do is kind of demonstrate where we think we have a pretty good solution here, but we would really be interested in the building committee's feedback. So some of the things that we, in addition to we thought it was important to establish the baseline or the station point record at the beginning of this presentation. So thank you for being part of that remedial exercise for most of you for those slides. So just kind of trying to look through some precedent images and pull some of the, perhaps some of the architectural language that is elsewhere in town. And, Hammonasset Beach State Park is a very good example of this rather delicate wood structure that is evocative of natural elements in the way that it braces back some of the structural members. So we felt like we could stay within the same architectural language for our canopy, as well as draw. This is a just a 2D non-rendered elevation, just so we can kind of demonstrate where we're coming from here. We think that if we bring a sloped canopy back, but differentiate it so that it's not part of a flat system and we're not creating any negative valleys, may bring in the opportunity to provide some. We really liked Sharon's idea of the rain chain, being able to put it at the top of the slope as an element that can help shed some water from these canopies. So the canopies, the structural systems themselves would be evocative of some of the language that we see, or it's an interpretation of some of that evocative architectural language at the State Beach, where it's kind of a modern interpretation. We think it fits in with some of the language that we have for kind of a modern school, but is a fairly reasonable callback in a way that we hope can address some of the comments with how we approach the building, and also provide a little bit more of a vernacular for the town. So if we're pursuing this language, we think that's the opportunity to kind of simplify some of the framing systems that are in our canopy outside of our cafeteria to provide some shading in that area. We think it's a nice way to potentially treat these solar shades. These horizontal solar shades are going to be an alternate anyway. But we think that for the same cost that we have, we may be able to make those be a little bit more tied to the rest of the language that we're providing here. So it's not fully baked, but we think it's important enough to get some feedback from this building committee on this particular item. So with that, I can stay parked on this slide or this slide. I know I went over what I promised we would go over, but we felt it was important to start from the beginning and kind of go through this.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
So just to clear, so ACA, you originally had the flat canopy, and ACA wanted you to have.
We originally had the inverted canopy.
Yeah.
And then in between ACA 1 and ACA 2, we flattened it. At the second meeting, they asked for a little bit more hierarchy at this entrance. We think that this solution fits within the spirit of their recommendation. So we don't view this as a change from their recommendation.
Got it. And I think, and I don't want to speak for Sharon, but Sharon expressed a desire for.
I unmuted. Did you notice?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Sharon. Yeah, that's okay.
I think it's definitely a step in a better direction. I do like it much better. Do we still have those funky boxes on the front of the building?
No, that
Good.
was one of the things that were in competition with what we are trying to do.
Yeah,
So-
I agree that this is a much better look, I'm an entrance than the flat or the slapping hand. I think it really does accent. Go to the other slide where you see it from the side. I like how it's extended so much further. So when someone's driving by, they're going to know that's the entrance and they're going to see it. And I think that's great. I like the play off the wood from the ham and acid. I think that's kind of cool. I do think it's definitely a step in the right direction. Thank you.
So one of the things that I will mention, as we're capturing attempting to capture some of the additional value management things with the exterior, we think that we need to chase this motif around the exterior of the building. So we wanted to start here just to get a bead from the building committee and fully anticipate that we will come back to you and say, okay, this is how we've resolved the rest of the exterior elevations.
Would you use color in this? And maybe different colors at different entrances to help delineate where things are?
I think that's an opportunity. You'll notice we deliberately did not
Do it color, yeah.
of this because
You're not there yet. I get it. So, do you still have the big framed boxes on the back?
yes,
Okay, that's the place where I thought it worked the best. I really liked the proportions of it back there. I didn't care for the proportions of it on the front.
yeah.
And one of the things is, I said it in my email 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again. You guys are absolutely brilliant in how you did the plan and the massing of this building. The way you hit it, you have taken an ugly box and minimized it, and yet gave us everything we needed. I think that's what appealed to us in the conceptual design you gave, which is very similar to this, really, which is amazing that in your interview that your conceptual design is very similar. But that was just brilliant. And I think we need to not so much accent the box, but accent the entrance. Don't put the lipstick on the pig, as they say, just, let it kind of disappear into the landscape. But I do like these entrances much better. Thank you.
Great.
So you mentioned the front of the building, Sharon, the Mungertown Road side, you mean?
Yes, the Mungertown Road where they showed the 5 square boxes that were heavy framed in different colors. I thought that felt kind of clunky, and bringing too much attention to the box and taking away from the entrance a little bit. So I thought, and the proportions were weird. I mean, especially with like the Modrian pattern design windows in it. I think proportionally they work better in the vertical ones in the back. But
Can we just go to the front elevation? Because just so we can make sure clear what you're.
that, I think that's a little funky. And you had one that was a perspective driving by, like a sidewards view. There you go. I think that's kind of weird. I don't mind it by the entrance, and I didn't mind it in the back because I think the proportions were better.
Yep.
But I don't want to draw that much attention to that facade, actually. I think I'd rather put it towards the entrance like you've done.
So I think, provided that, you know, there are no objections to the direction of the canopy, I think by, you know, we'll chase some of that language around. It will simplify some of this facade so that we can, you know, help express, you know, maybe these canopies become a little bit more prominent here if they're picking up some of the language from this. So that was one of the ways of, you know, by de-emphasizing this corner here, we were able to provide the building elevation as the backdrop for this kind of nebulous lattice, structural lattice on the outside.
And Justin, so you're clear on the requested direction on the Mungertown facade, or it's a work
Yeah.
in progress? I know you said. So
No, we're clear.
we'll come back to.
Yep.
Just because it was
I
a change from last time, in terms of not just at the exterior with some of those boxes, but the interior as well. I think Justin called out for input on, you know, colors and things during the design. I think it was even back in schematic design, there had been some color and materiality input from the working group and principal and that kind of thing. Just for the purposes of establishing a tone and direction, and whether it be confirmation or input, was there any thought about you know, colors and materiality, both interior and as we can see at the exterior from the group?
I do have a comment. I sat in on one of the early midday Wednesday when they were showing the interior
Working
colors and
group.
stuff.
Yeah.
I really like how they broke it out by the dunes and the water. I really think that's a great concept and works really well. There was just the one color that's kind of almost green, but not quite green, kind of gold, that I didn't like then. I still don't like now. And I think part of it is it's an odd color, and it's a real popular color right now. And I think we can probably find something subtler, more, maybe a little more green and not so golden green. It just looks like baby poop to me. So that's probably not a good analogy, but I guess it's good for small kids, but I don't know. That's my one and only critique on the color, is that one color. Other than that, I think the whole concept is great. I love the water and the more rich jewel toney deep water colors for the older kids. I think the whole concept there, where you the analogy to the ocean was great. It's that green on the left, that one. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. And maybe it needs to just be a little greener, maybe. I don't know. Maybe more like the outline of the picture. Just a little darker. I'm being really critical. It doesn't matter if anybody else has a comment. I'm like nitpicking here. And I'm not trying to be a doofus. I'm just stating an opinion, and it is just that, an opinion. So can't put a designer on a committee and not have her talk. I'm sorry.
Exactly. So, yeah, I would like, I know, does anyone else, I want to make sure we get everyone input, because we're gonna live with these colors, and, you know, 3 years from now, when we're walking around this building, speak now, forever hold your peace, so to speak, about the colors. I mean, I know most of you don't probably do colors in your day jobs, but I want to make sure I get any input. from anybody?
I would agree with Sharon that that green in that entryway was not doing it for me.
Yeah, I agree with Sharon as well, and I think that south facade, I guess, facing Mungertown Road, that if that could be a little more understated, I second that for sure.
Got it.
I mean, the natural light's wonderful, but yeah, maybe. And I assume you're trying to tie the color scheme, the themes into the larger massings of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
I-
Any,
No,
any
I think it
thoughts?
was a-
Bob, you have any thoughts? I know you had some good input on the north facade. Do you have any thoughts on the?
Yeah, I think Sharon's right in the right direction in changing that Mungertown side a little bit smaller. I think it's good though. It is the pre-K and kindergarten kids that are gonna be playing in that area. You're not gonna see a lot of it because of the berm in front. So I think it's important what you see in the playground area to the kids and the colors and stuff like that are important. I'm still a little hung up on that north side where first thing that all the kids see is brick walls when they come off the school bus. So I'd love to see something there. I don't even know what I want to see there, but it's just first thing that they see when they get off the school bus is just big brick walls. So it'd be nice. There's two entryways and then there's just brick walls.
Okay, got it.
Does everyone agree with Sharon's input on the east facade? The double height east wall facing the wetlands? Just want to make sure we give everyone
Yeah, I like that one. I think that looks nice.
Yeah, me too.
and the color palette on the exterior, everyone's good with that. I just want to make sure.
Are we going with a red brick? Is it?
Yeah, it'll be a red blend. So we'll get some iron spot colors that are part of the blend.
Okay.
So the image on the bottom left is more what we're going for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there, well, I don't want to be overspeak. See, like there, it doesn't look as red. It looks more tannish. And as opposed to like a red brick. I kind of
Yeah.
liked the softer tone.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on the brick, but I think
This came up, I believe, Bob was there too. This discussion came up at ACA with regard to the tonality of the brick blend being more red and providing more contrast versus a more neutral beige tone for the brick. And that kind of came out of the ACA discussion. Was the contrast seemed to have slightly more votes. There was a little bit of back and forth between some of the. It's just a group of architects there on ACA, so they had a lot of design background opinion. But
yeah,
if I recall correctly, that contrast was something that was ACA liked in the brick blend as shown.
it's not, yeah, okay, whatever. It's all opinion, doesn't matter. Subjective, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, so the rendering is a little softer than the
Yeah,
Reality, yeah. I like the softer instead of drawing attention to the box by a darker brick, but whatever.
okay.
Now, would you play on the bus side entrance with the canopies like you did on
Yes,
main entry?
yes, we
I,
have.
I think that'll help with the
Yeah.
comments about that. I think that'll be nice.
Mhm.
So, and maybe different colors or whatever when you get to that, yeah.
But
I like it.
any other, thank you, Sharon. No, that's why you're on the panel, Sharon. I appreciate it.
Because I'm opinionated and loud, yes, okay.
Okay, so Justin, do you have enough input to take another cut at it?
Yes, And the other thing that I will mention is when Adam and I were talking about this earlier, we have the ability to generate an executable virtual model, which would allow each person, it ends up being a huge file, but we can share it via the hot link that Adam has. But we can provide a virtual model of the building so that everybody can basically, once you open the file, it allows you to toggle, move through the building. You can pan and rotate the camera. You can go forward, side to side, backwards. So we owe you a virtual walkthrough, and we just wanted to understand how the building committee would like to engage in that. We can, at the next building committee meeting, we can share the screen and walk through, or we can provide everyone with their own copy of the file so that they can walk through it themselves. The way that the program executes the executable file is it has all the controls that are within the actual file itself. So it allows you the control to walk through the building.
Can we post that on a website, or is it too big?
It's pretty darn big. It's going to be like a gigabyte.
Yeah, I'm not clear, but I mean, it sounds like that would be a great PR thing for us to post it on the facilities or wherever website so everyone can see it. Just my thoughts.
I'll take a look. At a minimum, though, we can share it directly with SBC members so that way they can look at it. But I'll work with Justin and we'll see what's possible technologically and what makes sense.
Okay, great.
But failing that, you can do a fly through, then you can post the fly through to the public if you wanted to kind of.
Yeah, you definitely want to curate that for public consumption or what you want to post on your website. But there are a lot of inquisitive folks on this building committee that you may just appreciate being able to walk through yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of 3-dimension stuff that's going on in the building, so it's be good to.
And Justin, that when we spoke earlier today, that was about a week or two out to get that cleaned up in the file to compile and all that other stuff. So we're talking about schedules just to give everyone a kind of notion of when that's coming down the line.
Yeah.
Got it. So you're all set with that, and you mentioned we're continuing to go through the process. I think Adam probably talked schedule in a minute. So if you're all set, I'll turn it over to the construction manager's update. Nick, you're
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, tough to follow that act, that's for sure. Nicely done. So I will, like the Mungertown side, I will keep it understated. I don't have a whole lot to update other than we're continuing to coordinate with Justin's team, the team of consultants, as well as Tim Mayu, who's been a pleasure to work with so far. So we're kind of coming down the stretch here, it feels like, with CDs not too far away. So we're continuing to coordinate with them, and it seems to be going really well. And then the other item that we're working on is just kicking around internally how best to buy the early package equipment, the DOAS units, the switch gear, and then make a final decision on whether or not we put the generator in there as well. But I think we have a plan that works, but it's a little bit difficult to pre-buy material like this and equipment like this in a public bid environment, because when we bid the rest of the job out, those contractors have to inherit this material, the warranties and everything else. And as most of you probably know, in a public bid environment, you have to have choices and options. So just making sure that we're not running afoul of that. Yeah, and that's right around the corner as well, getting those documents and then getting that out to bid. So that's where we're at on our side right now. Any questions?
I'm just curious, how does that actually work when someone inherits something that they perhaps wouldn't have purchased?
We've done it successfully on a number of private projects where, if you think about, like if you're working at Yale, Yale has their own standard for electrical switchgear. It's the same manufacturer just about all the time. If not all the time, the spec is closed, meaning you can only use Eaton, you can only use Square D, you can only use GE, whoever it is. And then we're able to transfer that ownership of warranty, maintenance, and installation relatively easily. But to your question on public bid, I think it's easier than maybe we're thinking it is on our end, but we just want to make sure that we're not, this isn't, hey, you're inheriting a couple of slop sinks or, a couple of exterior doors. This is, major equipment.
Big
that
stuff, yeah.
is going to run for the next 50 years, hopefully. So we just want to make sure we get it right. And it hasn't, there's been a number of school projects, especially over the last year or two, that have done early procurement, but it's primarily been material and labor. So they've, bought an early demo package or bought out the concrete and steel early. And it's the typical concrete package where, contractor has the material, equipment, and the installation as well. This is a little bit different, obviously, with really just being a furnish-only package. So this one's a bit more unique.
Thank you.
You have to do a little more coordination up front, right? I know you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we hired the best, right, Nick?
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Got it. Okay, you're all set? Any other questions
Yes.
for Nick? Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Moving on to Adam for your OPM update.
In a similar fashion, I'll be pretty brief tonight, and then we just have the invoice packet to approve. Just kind of looking at the next couple weeks, we have the 4th of July holiday coming up. Right now, there's the meeting scheduled for Monday, July 3rd for the SBC. So I wanted to make sure that that's still the case. I think we talked about it a bit when we first set the schedule, that was a good target, but travel plans crop up and as you flesh out the year. So is that still the target date for everyone, July 3rd, or does that need to be shifted?
Why don't we find out if anybody can't make it?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
make
I'm
sure you have
good.
quorum. Yeah, I'm good. I'm away the following week, so actually the probably third's better for me. Unless people are traveling or. Bob,
Bob's
any-
out. I'm out.
So, but I think, Bob, you said you're out, you're doing some exotic bike trip, no doubt?
4th of July party in Vermont.
Ah, got it.
Nice. What time?
It starts on Friday night, and it goes through Wednesday, so anytime you want to come.
Okey doke.
There's only gonna be about 70 people, so.
No, you wouldn't even notice me.
Do we get to ride the red fire truck? The, Bob, is that mandatory? Is that optional?
Of course you would, yeah.
Do we have a quorum though for next Wednesday? So,
I'll be away on the 3rd as well.
okay, we're down at least 2 members. How about you, Woody? You got any grandkids in town or anything? You open?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay.
Good.
I guess so. It sounds like unless something changes, we'll plan on having the 3rd, and then we'll
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Just a housekeeping issue that's better to solve now than
Yeah.
than July 2nd. And then July, as Justin alluded to, the follow-up wetlands and planning and zoning meetings obviously important to get the approvals then and keep marching through that process. And then ultimately culminating in that first package, getting the first document sets put together at the end of July to start working through all the PCR reviews for that with the state and everything that Nick and Justin alluded to. So that's really the sort of the focus this next month or so is crossing the Ts and dotting the Is on everything critical for the land use approvals, as well as the backups to those early procurement packages. So switch gear, making sure our electrical loads are down pat, everything tied to that is known, generator, DOAS unit, et cetera, and working with Kohler Ronan and making sure that all those are ironed out. So that way, release those products, make sure the specs are good, and then finish up the remaining portions of the design over the following month. So lots of heads down, collaboration meetings, coordination meetings with Tecton and their consultants and Nick and myself. Any questions on schedule? Otherwise, that's really the bulk of what I have for tonight, other than the invoice packet.
Got it. Any questions for Adam? I
Graham, we had on the agenda, we had thought maybe we'd go to authorizing CD. Is that off the table?
Yeah, I talked a bit about that earlier today based on some updated information, and there's one or two components we need to iron out before we do that. So the plan is we had the good presentation tonight on visuals. We'll meet again on the 3rd. By then there might be a walkthrough file out the door that people can look at. We'll have any other updates on some of the visuals that Justin was talking about, and this other last vestigial component can get ironed and resolved out in the documents. And then when we come back on the 3rd, that'd be the target for setting that vote.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Just
And
so
they,
you're aware, Woody, I have people that are working on wall sections, exterior details, all along while we're making some of these last kind of capture some of these last items for design development. So we're maintaining a schedule here.
But it seems like it makes July 3rd even more important.
Yeah, I got to figure out on Tecton's end who will be. I will be in Cape May, so I will. Who am I kidding? I'm going to be at a party in Vermont.
Maybe we should just take the meeting there.
Anyway, we'll figure it out.
got it. And the board, as in most people know, I assume the board of selectmen voted to authorize additional funds, but the finance board was canceled, unfortunately, last Wednesday. And then we have a town meeting. I think the expectation is we'll get the extra money, the extra $6 million or 5.9 million we need. But we haven't officially got that vote in place yet. Another reason maybe be a little cautious. I'm 98% sure, but you never know. And I assume everyone knows that we did get the extra $6 million reimbursement from the state. Kudos to Colliers and the team and Bill for getting that.
Awesome.
But unfortunately, that doesn't allow us to spend $6 million more. There's a referendum cap, so the taxpayers will pay less for the building, but doesn't do us any good in terms of increasing the money. But I think the selectmen, Peggy's working with the selectmen to work out the other plan B. So I think it's 98% there, but we still need, we may need your attendance at a public vote. Or not attendance if we don't want a quorum. It's one of the nuances of the town charter that if you get more than 75 people, if you're less than 75, it passes. So sometimes you're better off not showing up. But we'll let you know if you need to show up for a positive vote in the next few weeks on that. So, but all good. So
No, the board of selectmen meeting was very positive. There was a good conversation there, and it'll help ensure that we're on the right path, especially as we go to the meetings with the state and all that everyone's rowing in the same direction on getting this to the goal line. So it's been very good.
yeah, so everyone's pulling the same way, and I appreciate the acceptance of our creative criticism, Justin, on your. Hope you didn't take it personal. So.
No, absolutely. I'm a building committee chair, so in my hometown. So I put the screws to architects as well. But no, this is all part of the process, all criticism, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I hope we weren't too tough on you.
No, we're tougher on ourselves in our internal meetings. So
I was trying to be gentle.
You were Sharon. You were very gentle.
you were a gentle slap.
There you go. The hand. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I've had committee members who are a little more blunt than you, Sharon, on the design side, so
Okay, good.
you were definitely gentle.
Well, I've been on the other side of it, so I'm trying to be nice. Karma.
Exactly. So I think we got some pretty good direction. So I'm sure we'll all be happy with it. And in 2 years from now, we're all walking around, everyone will be raving about the building, I'm sure. So that shouldn't be a problem. So, okay, moving on. Any more public comment? I assume not. Raquel, anyone joined us?
No comments, but we do have the approval of the invoice that we missed. Are we doing that?
Okay, yeah, I guess we'll double back.
I'll advocate for that one.
Yeah, exactly. We really have to. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we pay it.
That
That good
we have
enough?
a second?
Second,
Second, George seconded. All in favor?
aye.
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 I believe that was unanimous. Excellent. So we can pay that invoice. Further discussion and any other items that people would like to discuss? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
You've been busy, Sharon.
I know.
Your name will be all over these minutes.
Putting me
I
out of a
missed the last
job.
meeting, so
Wow.
I gotta make up
Exactly.
for it.
So Woody, was that a second, Woody?
Sure, that's a second.
Okay. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.